Decodable texts are systematic, so everything they're doing is built on things that they've learned before. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maylene Call from Mrs. Call's Campers. If you're new here, I am a first grade teacher in Las Vegas. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite decodables. They are from Hello Literacy. I'm going to answer your questions. I'm going to show you inside, explain how you can use them in small group. This is going to be a really helpful resource to you if you are new to the science of reading. Jen makes it really simple and she breaks everything down for you. I know that for teachers, small groups can be one of those things that's just very intimidating, so I hope this gives you a good idea of where to start, or if you've already started, if you already kind of know what you're doing, to give you some more ideas or help you kind of shift. One of the things that I'm going to link below for you is the Hello Literacy website. It is packed with resources, and I also want to mention her Instagram. She's really been sharing a lot of things that are super helpful, and you can learn a lot from her Instagram page as well. So her website's going to be linked below. That is where you'll find the books, lesson plans, scope and sequence, lesson templates. All of those things are going to be on her website for you. Really briefly, I just want to share with you the difference between decodable texts and level texts, or you might even hear them be called predictable texts or repetitive texts. Level texts are the ones that sound a little bit like, I see the cat, I see the hose, I see the bridge, and those are books that contain phonics skills that students have not fully learned, mastered, or even been introduced to yet. They rely a lot on the teacher prompting the students with guessing cues or strategies like look at the picture. The students just won't have the skill set to read those books without the help of the picture. So something that I've done before is you can take a sticky note and cover the picture in the book. Can the students still read what the word is? If you're using decodable texts, yes, they should be able to. If you're using level text, they're going to really struggle and have no clue where to start. So decodable texts, they are taught systematically and explicitly, and that's something that you've probably heard before, might hear again over and over, systematic and explicit. That just means you're teaching the skills from simple to complex, and you're being intentional about the skills that you are introducing. So today we are going to be reading a book that has the short A sound. Decodable books like this are focusing on skills that students have previously learned, or you're explicitly teaching them in the lesson. It means that they can decode it. So the key to this is following a scope and sequence. There are decodables out there that are a bit random, but the one thing you always want to make sure of when you're looking for decodable text is that they have a scope and sequence. So I'll show you the scope and sequence for Jen's decodables here. The goal is to meet students exactly where they are at. So think about how with sight words, a sight word is any word that you know by sight. So for us adults, we have hundreds of thousands of sight words that we can read and know by sight. You can think of the term decodable in that same sense, whereas text is decodable if a student can decode or sound out the word. So a decodable text for a beginning reader might be this, and a decodable text for a more advanced reader might be a chapter book. It's just something that they can decode. We talk about them in the primary sense. We're really just referring to a set of books with a scope and sequence that focuses on a certain skill. So I hope that clears things up. You obviously want to expose your students to more than just decodable texts. You want them to have that rich print and those higher level vocabulary words, but these are just for the purpose of your small group. You want to teach the decodable in a systematic and explicit way that's going to help your students learn. I really love the scope and sequence that Jen she has for free for you on her website. And she also wrote these decodables with the secret stories in mind, which I've talked about on my channel before. I'll link another video where I teach you a little bit about them. Let me know if you want another video where I go more in depth, because I know that can seem overwhelming at first. The way Jen laid out her scope and sequence is she has 3 sets of books. She has pink, orange, and yellow, and pink is going to be the least complex. So it starts off with our book Pat Can Nap. Starts off very simple, the very first pink book, and then by the end students will be practicing open and closed syllables. So in the Bandit, this is the last book in the pink series. This man is a bandit who runs and robs. He robs from the public for fun. The cops wonder how he does it. But in order to get from here to here, phonics skills are added in slowly, systematically, and you're teaching them explicitly. So I'm going to show you inside of these books. On the back of the books, there's always a little question that you can ask your students before you start. Here's a peek inside of the decodables. It's quite helpful because she gives you the skills, the decodable words, and later on she'll even include the words you'll need to map out, which I'll explain. And down at the bottom, she actually gives you a script. So like I said, this is super helpful if you're just getting started. There's a simple one from the pink set. And then in the back, there's extra things they can practice. So when I'm in a small group, I ask them to read the story 3 times. So as I'm going around and listening to my students, they're practicing still. Then you can have them do the sounds in the back, and then they have just the sentences here. Then in the very back are comprehension questions. These are questions you can ask individual students. They're questions that they can talk with partners. And in the later books, you can even have them write a response. So you can see how that inside cover changes. So here we're working on open syllables and long vowels. These are the words that they should be able to decode. These are vocabulary words, which in her lesson plans, she also does have vocabulary cards if you wanted those. And then these are the new heart words. If the students haven't learned the phonics skills in these words, then she tells you exactly which words that you can map with the kids. Does, for example, you would map that with your students, all of the sounds. D, z, d, this O is actually making a schwa sound. D, z, and that z sound is spelled E-S, and you can explain to your students this E is here because without it, it would look like it was the plural of another sight word, do. So in order to keep that word from looking plural, there is an E there, but ES can make that Z sound like in goes. I know for a lot of teachers, this is the intimidating part. I'm going to link a lot of resources for you in the description box below for sight words and heart word mapping and some places that you can go to learn more about how to teach and explain these rules to kids. Here's an example of a beginning book from the Orange series. The skills inside. I'll show you just a few pages. Here is the last book in the Orange set. And again, you can use the scope and sequence to kind of see what's appropriate for you to order based on what you teach with your students in whatever grade you're in. Here is the first book in the yellow set. These books have the long vowel teams, that sound, long I, long O, long U, all of those phonics skills that can be quite tricky. Here's the final book in the yellow series, her final decodable. Again, she did write these with the secret stories in mind, but those secret stories are definitely going to help your students when it comes to learning these phonics skills. So those are the decodables that I use in my small groups, but the next big question is, how do you place your students? How do you know which group they are going to be in? You are going to have students who come in at all different levels. I teach first grades, so the range can actually be anywhere from, pre-kindergarten all the way up to like 3rd grade reading level, maybe even higher. It just depends, but there's teachers who in 3rd grade still have students who are struggling with phonics who could definitely benefit from this. One thing that Jen includes for free is a quick placement assessment. I have it in a sheet protector here, but I'll put it on the screen for you here, but you can have your students go through and read the sentences, and then that'll help you figure out where they can start reading, what skills they might need to be working on next. At least for me in 1st grade, I have students who come in still needing work on just their letter sounds, but students who are working on CVC words, student who might be ready for blends. You'll be able to group your students based on what they need, and in the beginning you can use the quick placement assessment to get a really good idea of it, but the idea is that the groups are supposed to be flexible. You're not going to have the same 4 to 6 students in the same group for the entire year. They're not static. They are meant to change. You'll have some students who grasp concepts really, really well, and you'll have some students who you can throw them in this group for this week because they really need this skill or they're working on it, or maybe they can read more complex books but they're missing a specific skill. You can pull them into that group with you for that day. The group should be challenging for them. We say it's at their instructional level. So it's not easy, they can breeze through it. You still want them to struggle a little bit. It's kind of like that sweet spot that you'll get better at seeing the more that you do your small groups, and you'll get better at making those decisions based on listening to them. As far as the rest of the components to the small group goes, again, Jen's website is a really great resource for you. She walks you through, and she has lesson plans for you that cover phonemic awareness, phonics review, new phonics skill, spelling, vocabulary, decoding, actually reading the book, and then comprehension. She can walk you through all of that if you feel like that's something you need. But if you are new to everything, I did just want to reiterate that a small group lesson is more than just reading the books with your students. It is reviewing the skills that you've taught them previously, because the decodable texts are systematic, so everything they're doing is built on things that they've learned before. So you're reviewing things, you're doing phonemic awareness, which is one of the most important components to reading. You're working on spelling with them, you're working on reading. I have teachers ask me how long to spend on a specific book, and really your goal is to get through all of the components of a small group lesson. So you want the phonemic awareness and the phonics and the spelling and the vocabulary and the decoding and the comprehension. So whether that takes you a day or 2 days, that's how long you should spend with the book, and then from then on they can review it. But the goal is always to keep them moving and keep challenging them. We want them to be right in that zone where they are being challenged as they read. If you read the same book in your small group for 5 days in a row, the text is either probably way too hard for them if they're not getting it, or you're spending too long on it and it's too easy for them. So hopefully that kind of helps. I typically meet with my groups about 3 times per week, and I meet with my group that needs the most skills every single day if I can. Last thing I want to talk about is just simply how I store the books. I store them in these bins that I got from Target. They actually fit quite perfectly. I use just binder clips to hold them together. You could also use rubber bands, whatever you're more comfortable with. I just use the binder clips. This is the entire set of pink books. I'll show you how much room you have in the back there. That's kind of how a set fits. And then since I have the binders, I also put them in one of these Target bins as well. And the colored binders actually are also from Target, and they match perfectly with her decodables. So little tip. These are absolutely an investment. Jen does PDs at schools. You can reach out to your principal, see maybe if your principal can get the decodables for you. She also has a form that you can fill out if you want to do donors choose, which is a really great way of getting them. I really hope that this video was helpful. I've been dying to share about these decodables with you for a while now, so make sure you like this video, subscribe, and join our family down below. We would love to have you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.